We're back.
It's your mom, friends. I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Jess. And in this episode, we're having an honest conversation about competitive youth sports, the financial strain, the time demands, the comparison trap, and the pressure that more is always better. We're talking about how the culture has shifted, the fear of falling behind, the impact on family life and marriages, and how to know when it might be time to step back. This isn't about shaming sports, it's about asking better questions and protecting our family's peace. If you felt stretched thin trying to keep up, this conversation will feel like a deep exhale. You're allowed to choose what's right for your family, even if it looks different from everyone else. I I am really excited to have this conversation because I'm going to be honest with you. I think I need to talk through my issues with competitive sports and where we stand in them because I carry a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of uncertainty in the world of competitive sports when I realized how fast paced they are, how competitive they are. For those who know us, we are a huge racing family. Deegan grew up racing from the time he was 4 years old. I come from a background of family racing. I raced. So it was just who we are. It's what we do. So Deegan showed interest in it from a very young age. And so when he was old enough, he got his first go-kart and he started racing the summer he was going to turn 4. And he has raced. This will be the first season in 10 years that he will not race. And a couple of years ago, he started having conversations about I want to play baseball. I want to play basketball. I want to play the sports that my friends are playing. And in the racing world, you can't because the seasons overlap and we're traveling and we're doing different things. Your weekends are always shot. So it was you had to pick one or the other. And for the first forever, he would always pick racing until these last couple of years where he would say, I want to sign up for baseball. I want to play baseball. And so when you have so much money and time invested in this program, this racing program, we had to come to terms with like, okay, what's this going to look like moving forward? We have to let him, which I will say there was probably like a grief period of like, oh my gosh, like this is who we are. This is what we do. How do we move on from this? What does this even look like? Two, we need to do what's best for him. We want him to make this choice. If he wants to dive into sports, let's do it. And so we did. We signed him up for baseball and I had a conversation. Thankfully, he was young enough to be able to still play not T-ball. What is it? It's it's that next like youth level baseball team. And we signed him up for that. And his baseball age was he's still young enough. He wasn't going to turn 11 until September 18th. And I think the cutoff maybe is like September 1st or something like that. And so ultimately, he was still young enough he could play on the younger team. And they called me and they said, hey, listen, because he's never played before, let's keep him with the younger crowd. He knows some kids on the team and stuff. Like, let's keep him with the younger kids so he can like learn fundamentals. Like, he can throw a ball, he can hit a ball, he can catch, but he has no idea where the play is. He has no, like those types of things when it comes to baseball. Deegan is clueless. And so we were on board. We were like, yep, let's do this. He pitched the first game, their very first game. The coach put him in to pitch because Deegan just volunteered, hey, I'd like to pitch. And he, beginner's luck, struck out like the first 3 batters. And the other teams like stormed the bench. Like they left the coach comes running over demanding he sees his birth certificate. This was our first outside of racing competitive sport experience with baseball. We were like, what? This is worse than racing parents, and they could be pretty rough. It was fueled by furious parents. He's way too big to be playing with my kid. Because Deegan's a bigger boy. They did not care. Like there was no, he's brand new. This is probably beginner's luck. This is, whatever. People were furious. And it really started us into this like kind of world of like, I can't believe how competitive. I can't believe the stuff that these kids wheel in with, 14 bats and all this stuff and suitcases. And I'm like, this is wild. And these kids are playing travel ball, rec ball, school ball. Like he has friends that are on 3 and 4 teams at the same time. And I felt this overwhelm this completely overwhelming feeling of like, I failed this kid. He's never going to make a team. He's never going to be able to play in school. He tried out for LaSalle and he was one of two kids who didn't make it. And he sobbed the whole way home. And I felt like I completely failed this kid. We let him race, and maybe we should have put him in T-ball. Maybe we should have put him, because now these kids have literally gone from T-ball to all-stars to all of this, and now they're going to be like, they're going to make the teams. They're doing the things. It's so hard to come in as a 12-year-old boy who's never played before and be able to play. They don't make it so that these kids can learn how to play. And I want him to. I want him to know, like, competitive, like, racing is very different than team sports. In racing, you are your own team. Like, it was us. We were our team. In sports, you have to learn how to like cheer each other on and play and together and, like all the things that come with playing on a team sport, which I wanted for him. But I was like, he's never going to have that opportunity. Now, thankfully, moving out here to Idaho, the school district that he's in is small. Like, I don't think that you have to make the team. Like, I've had this conversation with local parents and they're like, if he wants to play baseball, he's going to play baseball. Like, you don't have to make a team. Now, there is like travel ball teams and stuff out here too that he would have to go try out for. But to play at school, I don't think that he's going to make the team. And so there is a piece of me that's like, okay, we're here for a reason. Like, there's so many good plans that we have here. And maybe this is a piece of it. Deegan gets to experience school, sports, because he's a team kid through and through. He loves sport. Like, he loves being a part of a team. He's not the greatest. He's not some all-star athlete, but he is all heart, and he will support them to no end, and he will try his best even if it's not. But, it's hard because it's like, I want him to be able to experience this, but sports have changed so much over the years to what is the root of why we have so much going on in competitive sports for kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way. I talked a little bit about my kiddos in the last episode, and my middle child was a three-sport athlete from the time she basically was in kindergarten, and she lived and breathed the stuff. She gave it 100% all the time. She would always do the extra, be at the extra practices. And she was definitely in it all the time. And then now my 14-year-old is part of teams. However, she doesn't have the same level of drive. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. They're just completely different. And so, I do think like she sits the bench a lot more than my older daughter did. And my older daughter put way more time and energy in it than, my youngest does. And so again, I'm not saying one is better than the other. They're just different. And so I think that's the thing. Like, you make it what you want to make it. And so my oldest daughter was really gung-ho about sports. So she was always busy with them. Whereas Emily prefers days off and, time to do other things than just always be on the court or whatever. And she does not play a spring sport. She chooses not to play softball. And I'm not making her play a spring sport, so it's a very different feeling between the two. But I agree, Jess. I think sometimes we keep them so busy, and the older they get, the more work they get at school. They have to prepare for SATs when they get older. They have to work. They got to do sports. They're like managing all these things. And yes, all of that builds character, and it also builds burnout. And so what are we teaching them at such a young age? Work, 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 work. So, and Madison played soccer in college. Like, she was able to do that. I have to say, though, when she graduated high school as a three-sport athlete, she was lost because her time was filled all the time, all year round. And when she wasn't playing a winter sport, she was skiing. Like, she was very active. And so when she was done high school and she didn't have the three sports, she was like, who am I outside of these sports? So she did struggle a little bit. She ended up, like I said, going to college, and she played some soccer, but that was, only as long as she was in college. So she has since replaced it with going to the gym. She goes there several days a week. So she's still very active. But, I do think like we wrap so much of their childhood into competitive sports. And I think it becomes a thing for parents. I think it becomes our social outlet, our community, part of who we are. I don't want to say our worth is dependent upon how good our kids are in sports. However, we have a lot of pride wrapped up in it. Lots of pride wrapped up in it. I'm one of those moms too, getting the basket, recording her getting a basket or and then
Yeah.
posting on social media or whatever. Like I'm that mom too. So I'm not placing any judgment, but I do think it becomes like a part of our culture, part of who we are as parents, as a family, as a community. And then what happens when they're done?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's enough thought into the aftermath.
Hmm.
They're absolutely like consumed in living in the moment. A couple things I jotted down while you were talking that like why do we feel like we need to keep them so busy? I know for myself it's fear that like they're missing out. Like we only have so much time in their childhood and I want to make sure that they can do all the things and try all the things. And, I didn't. When I was younger, we raced. I didn't play sports. I played volleyball in high school. I signed up to play in ninth grade and quit because it was very hard. And I didn't have anybody telling me that I shouldn't quit or that I couldn't quit. And then I played again in my senior year and I loved it. And my biggest regret was not pushing through the hard. Like I could have experienced this fun the entire 4 years of my high school career and I chose not to. And so I think I have a little bit of like, I want to make sure my kids experience all the things that they want to a fault. Like, I'm living vicariously through them. Like, I want you to do all of these things because I want to make sure that you don't live with regrets. But am I ultimately creating their own childhood, stuff that they're going to have to work through because their mom pushed them to do all of these things? I have come to moving to Idaho has slowed me down drastically. Like, hey, the whole world's not living a fast-paced life. I met somebody out here who I love. She's wonderful. And I asked her if her daughter was signing up to do something. And she said to me, "Nope. I told my daughter she gets to pick one thing a year. And if you pick dance, that's all you're doing. If you pick a sport, that's all you're doing because I want them to be bored. I want her to come home and have nothing to do and have to use her imagination, have to play, have to, go walk down the street to the neighbor's house and play after school. Like, I want her to experience that." And I was like, punch in the gut, like, oh my gosh, I do love that piece of the world that Idaho has right here is that you're just like, that is the norm. That is very much a norm here is like Riley they don't have homework. So like leaving after coming home after school and running down the street to go find a friend to play with. And I'm like, I love that piece of it. If I go signing her up for, dance 3 nights a week and then she's got volleyball 2 nights a week and like all this stuff, there we go. We're back to seven days a week. We're doing something. When
Hmm.
does she have time to be a kid? And the fear of, oh my gosh, they're going to fall behind if I don't keep them in these sports year round or keep doing this constantly, then they're not going to have that same childhood experience. Or that pride thing, they may not be the best on the team. They might not get the most playing time. They may not, be an all-star standout, everybody loves her. But is that what it's really about? Is that what we've come to, need it to be about? Is that like, I wrote down what is the drive, like, what's the drive behind it? Right? Like, what is the drive behind having our kids so involved in all of this stuff year round that they don't get a break? Is it because of our own insecurities, our own fears, our own desires for them? Or do they truly want to be involved in this stuff all the time? And if they truly want to be involved in this stuff all the time, what are we teaching them? Well, like you said, when Maddie finished, like she was like, who am I? Like, who am I outside of this world that I've just lived in for the last however many years? And that becomes like some kids handle that well. Some kids do not handle that well. They feel empty. Like all of their value was who they were out on a field or out on a court. And now that they're not that person, that's like the kids who peak in high school, like the high school football stars who, were everything in high school, but out of high school, who are they? Do we give our kids enough tools to be able to transition into you're more than an athlete now? Like I'm a huge believer in kids having jobs. Like, so if it doesn't work around your work schedule, like maybe we can't do travel ball at 17, at 16, like because we need to ingrain them into real life and what that looks like. Of course, we want to save them. We want to, protect them from everything. We want them to have an incredible childhood, but not at the expense that they're not a functioning adult, that they feel empty inside as an adult. Like I want them to experience it, but also know that there's life outside of it, which makes it really hard for them to maintain just even like a rec level of sports when they're getting completely steamrolled by these kids who are playing rec sports, but are also these all-stars because they play three times, three teams a season. It's like, how do you keep up? It's really hard.
And kudos to those kids that play three teams
Absolutely.
and they play around. Like there's no judgment there, right? And that's
Uh-huh.
just not Emily. Like that's not my youngest. And so when she sits the bench, because she isn't one of those kids that play around the clock, she sometimes she's okay with it, sometimes she gets a little disappointed. And I mean that's normal. That's a normal response. But I
Mm.
always tell her, like, if you want to play more, you need to play more. You need to practice more. You need to do the
Right.
extra. The reason why these kids are getting extra play is because they put extra into it. So you can't have a day off and get extra playing time. Like both worlds don't exist. So it's one of those things. It's like, what do you value? What do you want to do? Do you value your time off and doing other things in sports more than playtime, or do you value playtime more than doing the other things? And I can't make that decision for you. You have to make that
Right.
decision for yourself. So, yes, you show up to all the games. Yes, you show up to all the practices. And that extra that the other kids do, you're not doing. So, and again, I'm not trying to make her feel bad about that. I'm fine with it. Quite frankly, I didn't play sports in high school. I am not competitive by nature. I don't care. I have been watching sports since my oldest were little in kindergarten, and I still couldn't tell you the rules of basketball or soccer or softball, honestly. Like, I know the gist of it, but I could not coach a team. I could not tell you any of the calls. I don't know any of it. So, because I don't, I hate to say this, but I really don't care. I don't
Right.
care. It's not something I value. And I'm trying to hold the space for my kids if they do value it. I show up all the time. I make sure that where they need to be. It doesn't matter to me,
Yeah.
honestly. So I do think like I hold space for non-competitive things. Like if Emily wants to learn how to play her keyboard, during the spring, or she wants to start, going for walks or working out or whatever because she's not playing a spring sport. She doesn't have to play a spring sport. Like that's
Right.
okay as long as we're not just frying our brain on the phone. And that's the alternative. Because when kids are bored, you said they need to learn how to be bored. Kids have such a hard time being bored these days, and they tend to go to the electronics. And so
Hmm.
I will say sports any day of the week over electronics. If I had to choose one or the other, I would always choose a competitive sport, even though I don't care about them, over
Right.
electronics. So find something that's healthy for your mind and your body. And if it's not sports, that's okay, but it's also not going to be your phone.
100%. Well, I don't, do we put enough value on like the arts? Like Briley loves
Right.
theater. She's been in plays before. She loves doing stuff like that. But it's almost like that's not as a level of,
Mhm.
as prestigious as, my kid is a quarterback or my kid is a star, whatever.
Well,
And
Travis wasn't all that in high school. He did all the plays. He wasn't a sports
okay.
kid either. He did all the plays. He was in the leadership groups and all the things. So, yeah, I do think like the arts is really important and
Yeah.
definitely an area where, families could consider if competitive sports is not for them. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that Travis was very much into that.
Yeah, she loved it. She did a couple of plays over winter break and over the summer and stuff. And it was really something that she fell in love with. And
Mhm.
so it's being okay as a parent, right? Like being okay with your kid. There's as people, right? We both love growth. We love pushing ourselves. So we know the value of like you have to have the drive if you're going to keep up with something at the speed that it's currently at. We can't control that. Like, and this is something that I struggle with is the fact that we can't control the rate at which youth competitive sports is currently residing at, right? Like, I would love for it to be less than what it is. I would love for it to be more family conducive to, dinners at home, right? Like, it's the funny thing. You see the Instagram reels that's like, oh, it's baseball season. We're having dinner at 3 o'clock or 10 o'clock. There's no in between. So I would love for there to be more of an emphasis on families eating around a table together, like be more conducive to a family life, but I don't control it. And so I can either, what are the three things? I can, stay miserable, I can change it, or I can just be okay with it. And so we have to figure out what works for us. And I think that, there is zero judgment here. I know that people are going to be listening to this who have kids in multiple sports and be like, you guys are totally wrong. We support you. If you're a kid and you guys are thriving in a, travel ball, rec ball, school ball scenario, and that's what works for your family, then we support you. We totally do. But for the mom who, like me, who has shed tears over the feeling of like my kid is falling behind, I'm failing him. I wish, maybe I should have done things differently so that he played T-ball up until maybe he would have made LaSalle's team. Like, who knows? But I think that there is an important piece here that moms need to hear, that like your kid is still going to have an incredible childhood, even if it doesn't include competitive sports, even if it doesn't include, being at a ball field every night of the week. Like, if it doesn't, what works for you and what works for your child is what's best. If they want to learn piano, if they want to do plays instead, if they just want to play one sport a year, like that is okay. We have come so far from teaching kids the importance of rest and slowing down and just enjoy being in your four walls. It's like, when we're home, everybody's like, well, what are we doing next? Like, I hated that. I hate that. Like, we always had to have something going on. It's like, why can't we? Because we've created a lifestyle where we're just always on the go. We are always doing what's next, what's next, what's next. Nothing. We are just going to hang out at home. You can do a puzzle. You can read a book. You can play Legos. You can color. You could do any of those things, but we're not doing anything. You can go find a friend to play with. You can go play outside, go ride your bike, go for a walk. I don't care what you do. You're not going to be on a phone or a tablet, and you're not going to be on a TV, but just do something.
I don't need to be the one with you either. Like you can go do
Correct.
something. Like yeah,
Yes.
that doesn't mean like I have to be sitting down and playing a game with you. I mean, it's great if you do, but don't feel like you have to, right?
Correct.
Hmm.
Correct. What are we modeling going back to these kids who come out of school feeling like they have this huge void because they no longer are something that they used to be praised and their world revolved around? What are we modeling about our worth, our value? What are we putting our value in these kids from such a young age?
Well, there's so much external validation right there. And so when we thrive off of external validation, when we don't get it, we have nothing internal. That intrinsic motivation is what we want to grow. We want us to be okay with ourselves. We want us to have pride in ourselves and what we're doing and not base it on someone else's opinion of us. And we want the same for our kids. So how do we build that for them? And when they're constantly striving to get that pat on the back, to get that attaboy, to get that whatever it is, when they don't have that, what does life look like for them?
Right. So true.
And that can be for anything. I mean, that has it, competitive sports or anything for that matter.
Oh,
So
for
we
sure.
need to teach that intrinsic motivation for them and not only rely on external validation.
Right, right. Because are we teaching them, like, are they loved because of who they are or by what they do? Like, oh, I did really good, but you're good regardless. Like, you're good whether you strike out or hit three home runs. You're good if you get the lead role of the play or if you are, just the light help. Like, there's so much. You have value as you. And I think that we struggle with that as moms, right? So how do we portray that to our kids when we struggle with, do we find value in ourselves as moms, or is it based off of the childhood that our kids have? Like, I've said this before in the episode we were talking about Christmas. Like, Christmas isn't magical because you do all these things. It's magical because you're their mom, because you are magic with who you are, no matter what it looks like.
Mhm.
We go so far above and beyond because we live in a society that literally champions stuff, like being extra, going above and beyond in not the best ways. And it's like, if I can't keep up with the Joneses, if my kid can't have this or my kid can't do this, then I'm not a good mom, and that's what we strive for. And it's like, no, we've lost so much sight of connection, getting on the floor and playing with your kids, doing what do they want to do, want to, playing a game, just really like sitting with them and talking to them and connecting with them. When's the last time we've done that? Normally it's, yelling like, let's go, we're going to be late because we got to get to practice, we got to do this, we got to do that. And it's like, is this worth the disconnect? Is this worth, like, what kind of relationship are we building when this is our life all of the time? And again, I don't anti-sport, right? I'm not anti-device. I'm pro-boundaries. I'm not anti-sports. I'm pro-boundaries. I'm pro, like, your family life, your connection with your kids should be the most important thing in my eyes. What you can fill in around that to enhance it, great. But if it's taking away from it, then and this is me talking to myself because I've struggled with this conversation with myself. I want my kids to play sports, but I don't want it to consume them.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I was that parent that was running around and doing all the things, especially when I was a single parent with my two older ones, and they were running in different directions, and their scheduled events consumed our lives, and we were having dinner late at night, as you described, 3 p.m. or 10 p.m. There was no middle ground, and I lived that. And so I think it's definitely a way for a lot of families, and there's no judgment there. And I feel like when you're on the opposite side of that, that's okay too. So like you said, what's complementing your family? What is within your family values? You might have a family that's strong into sports and had parents that played sports and that are really, passionate about it and want to be part of the community, and they coach, and it's just part of their family culture. Wonderful. And there's a lot of things that you're teaching your kids through that as well. And just a little tip, as you were saying, I don't even know what made me think of it, but it's kind of going down a different road for Maddie, because she was a 3-sport athlete, and in her high school career, she did want to play college soccer. And so I was never an athlete, and she was my really first 3-star athlete. I had no idea what I was doing. What I would do differently for Emily if she was wanting to play sports in college, I don't think that's the case for her, is if you have a high school student, okay, if you have a child that's in high school and they want to play sports in college, videotape them playing, because colleges are going to look for footage. So this is just a little tip to parents, right? Because I know we were just talking about, like, I don't want to say anti-sports, but like how heavy it can be with sports. But for those sports families, and you may already know this if you're a sport family, but for those that do not know, or like me that did not know, record your kids, take clips of them, take pictures of them, and then you can create a movie or whatever to be able to send off to colleges once they start applying, so they can see them actually playing. So I wish I would have done that for Maddie when she was playing. She graduated in 2021, so it was in the midst of COVID, of course. And so much of her senior year, I watched basketball from our living room. They streamed it, right? And we could only watch it from the living room. And so soccer was better because, of course, that's an outside game. But I didn't know about the video recording of your child playing. And so because of COVID, the silver lining of that is they started streaming. They would have like whatever streaming company there or whatever. So I was able to buy those games and then like take clips or send them to the colleges she applied to. I was able to put stuff together through that. But it was definitely an eye-opener for me, and something I tell parents all the time now in the middle school years: take footage, record. It matters. It matters every year too, to show their growth, because colleges do want to see that, especially if they want to play sports in college. So that's my little tip for all of you college families out there. I think it's important to know.
That is a good tip for sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we, in so many areas of our lives, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, that we let society set the expectations for us of what things should look like. And I think that it's just important to know that, you get to decide. You get to decide what kind of mom you want to be. You get to decide what kind of childhood and you get to be okay with it. And I think that's what I have wrestled with for a while. Like, even if Deegan doesn't play sports, even if he only plays baseball and he doesn't ever play any of the other sports in school, he's okay. Like, he's going to, because I want to define success as character, not trophies. I want to define success with him as balance, and not rushing, and not always being in a rush. And, and if he wants something, then he has to put in the discipline and the effort and the drive to do it. And if he doesn't, that's okay too. Like, it's not my job to force it, because he gets to make that choice. And if he just doesn't have it, then he doesn't have it. But I jotted a couple of questions down that can, just be for anybody listening, that says, does my child actually want this? Is this something that I'm pushing them? Is this something I want them to do, or do they really want to do this? Are we doing this for development or status? Is our family healthier because of this, or is it more strained? And what would happen if we slowed down? And again, there is no judgment to the families who live and breathe their chaotic sports schedules. I get it. I thoroughly get it, because in when we raced, that's what we did. We traveled, we were all over the East Coast with him. And, it was a lot. There are times I look back and think we were crazy, and I don't know. We had plenty of arguments over if we were doing too much, not enough, where we were. So I get it. And now being on the other side of it with him choosing, I think that Deegan would have been done racing whether we moved or not. It was a requirement because they don't race out here what he used to. And I really think that, him choosing, it was his choice. He wanted to stop no matter what. And knowing that what life looks like outside of that, that was hard for us. It was hard. That's who we are. It's what we do. So it was really hard for us to, I think, come to terms with, this is a good thing. He wants to experience life outside of racing. But when he was good, like he did well. And so that's definitely, we had a ton of fun. We had our fair shares of up and downs, but it was something ultimately that we really did have a lot of fun doing. And so when your life for 10 years, and for his, like, it's literally the majority of his life was doing this single thing. But to see him hop into his side by side and go down to the river and go fishing, like, what a cool thing that he's going to experience life outside of this, when you think that it's all you'll ever do. Like, we thought we'd race forever because this is who we are. It's what we do. But knowing that there is life outside of competitive sports, knowing that there is life outside of something that you thought you'd be involved in forever, it is cool to see a different kind. Like, I ask them all the time, do you guys miss it? Are you going to be sad when we don't start? And both him and Jim are kind of like, we miss the people. You kind of have a family, like you said, the social status of, like, the moms kind of get together and you see the same people every week. But at the end of the day, they are really enjoying life outside of it. And that, I think, is what keeps me going, knowing that, yeah, he may not be an all-star baseball player. He may not be able to he may sit the bench. I don't know. But we had really cool experiences, and now slowing down and truly enjoying life has been, I think, is another important piece of their childhood that I want them to have.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. And, some families do thrive in that, like you said, the busy, sports schedule, and that's where their family's at. And then there are other people who, prefer the slow and more balanced approach, and neither one is right or wrong. As you said, what complements your family, what makes sense for your family, what are your values, and I always go back to values. What is it that your family value, what are your family values, what are your individual values, and are you upholding those values in your everyday actions? And I feel like the same goes true here. I personally don't value sports. I don't care, as I said, and I know, most of my family loves sports, between football and, watching, Sunday football and watching the kids play their sports. Like, there's a lot of fun and family memories around that. I could take it or leave it, honestly, but I want to do what makes my family. I could care less. And you know what? Someone has to lose. So, right. Like, who cares, right? Like,
well, and that's a good piece. Like, are we creating losers? Like, are we creating kids who are capable of losing without, the temper tantrums? It's interesting and humbling to be able to be like, yeah, there has to be a winner, there has to be a loser. And are the kids' actions reflecting kids who are capable of being both?
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to say yes. I'd like to say that we are raising kiddos when you're in competitive sports.
That's a huge piece of it.
It is a huge piece of it. Yeah. Learning how to lose, learning how to win with grace, learning how to be on a team, learning all of those lifelong skills. So there's so much into competitive sports that I want to make sure that we don't miss, because there are so many lifelong lessons that kids get from being in organized sports, 100%. So I don't want to take away from that, because that's important. And I do value all of that. The whole game thing, I'm not a fan of. But I would like it, just a side note, we went and played Top Golf when we were in Florida last week. Well, I say we. I didn't play. I chose not to play. I took all the pictures in the video. I don't care to play. Like, I did not have any ounce of interest in playing, but they had a ball. You know, my husband and our best friends played, and I was able to take video and pictures, and that was where I found my happy spot. But I think that's important, just to allow people to be, our kids to be who they are and support them through that. And I also believe in, like, once you make a commitment, you've made the commitment. So I
Hmm.
think quitting, I don't support quitting, and no judgment. I just think, like, once you say I want to be on a team and I'm committed, then you're committed and you're going to work through the hard and you're going to do all the things to get through. And then if you choose not to play next year, that's fine. But you've made the commitment this year, and unless they're injured and they can't play, and even then you can still show up and cheer from the bench,
Right.
quitting is not an option, right? Because
Yeah.
that's another lesson that we need to teach.
Yeah, we're learning that currently. So when we moved out here, Briley came from a dance team in New York that she absolutely loved. I say that was probably the hardest goodbye for her was those guys. And so when we got out here, we kind of asked around about some like dance studios and stuff. And a bunch of the kids that she was going to school with were going to this certain dance studio. So I thought, it kind of makes sense to send her there. She'll at least know some familiar faces and whatever. So we signed her up for this much less competitive, kind of like a crossover between just a rec class and ultimately wanting to compete. And so we thought it would be a good fit for her, and it has not. We learned very quickly that it's just a very different vibe than what she's used to, and she's not loving it. And so we had this quitting talk like, okay, there's so much good that can come from learning and so from still being in this experience. You don't love the dances, you don't love, the whole vibe. That's okay. You can't quit because you committed, and you have to be there and support them, and you're there till May, and you have to do it, and you have to do it with a good attitude, and you have to try your hardest, and you have to do all those things because who are you becoming during this, right? Like, she may not understand it, but I'm still going to tell her. I'm still going to have these, her level conversations of, guess what? You're going to be a completely different dancer by the end of it because you chose to stick it out even when you didn't want to. You
Mhm.
may learn different skills. You may learn different things from being here that if you quit, you're not going to. And so we're not doing that. And you have to. And then guess what? Next year, we don't have to sign up. We can find another dance studio that maybe will fit your all of your desires better. And so it is important to I totally agree. I think it's super important if they sign up for something, and you will learn valuable life skills and life lessons because of it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just
I,
just learning how to work through something when you don't want to work through it is value.
and I love that you had mentioned, there is so much good that comes out of competitive sports. I'm not anti-sports. I'm totally pro sports. I wish it was easier for kids who don't want to play at a super high level to still participate in a pretty heavily. I think that's where my goal is, but I totally agree that sports are good and they teach kids a lot of things. I thought this was pretty cool. Briley started playing volleyball the other day, and she never played before. She hates sports. She's not a sport kid. Just said yes to playing, and so I sat in on the first practice parent meeting in the beginning, and the coach said, I hope you don't mind. And if you don't want your kid to participate, just let me know. They don't have to. But I'm going to give each kid a notebook. And at the end of the class, they're going to write down 3 things that they did well and 1 thing that they want to work on for the next week. And I like literally wanted to jump up and hug her and clap because like, yes, like that's teaching the kids amongst a practice where you're not going to, Briley's never played volleyball before. She has no idea. She's not going to be good. Like, she's going to be good. Let me rephrase that. She's gonna have no idea what she's doing in the beginning. And so by building her up, by saying, I want to know 3 things that you did well, even if you think you didn't do anything well, you have to find 3 things. Whether it's cheered somebody on, you held the door for something, it had nothing to do with volleyball, but you had to find 3 things that you did well at practice. And then 1 thing that you intentionally want to work on the next week. And she said, I don't care how well we do. I care that these kids are good teammates. I care that they build each other up. I care that they're proud of themselves. Like, I care more about who they are as a person than I do as them as athletes. And I was like, this is why I love this. Something that she can learn from somebody who's not me, who's teaching the same values that I want to instill in her. And she's going to do it by learning a sport, working with other kids. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not anti-sports. I'm pro-intentional, allowing us to choose what's best for our families. If you are not a sport family, then please don't feel like pressure, like you're behind, your kids are falling behind. If you are a sports family, then just make sure that the values that you set for your family, you're upholding them and walking in them and allowing sports to be a resource to enhance that, not take away from it.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself, Jess. So as you move forward, just thinking about like what is complementing your life, what is complicating your life. I think we've said that before, and really take stock in that. And, what's the why behind it? Is it more for the parents? Is it more for the kiddos? And really kind of digging in that, because I do think a lot of times, parents do find their community too. So there's so much wrapped in it beyond just your kid playing sports. It's a way of life for many people. So
yeah, so true.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us on Mom Fuel and Mindset. If today's conversation spoke to you, take it as a reminder that happy moms don't come from doing more. They come from choosing themselves and owning their growth.
And if you loved this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mom who needs a little fuel and a mindset shift today.
Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, keep growing forward, and remember, happy moms own their growth.
See you soon.